I know what you're thinking inside your head right now. You're like, what did you do? What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's episode, we got a brand new build for you. I'm not even gonna snake you, I'm just gonna pull it out and let you see it. Yeah, I know what you're thinking inside your head right now. You're like, what did you do? I kind of was thinking the same thing when I bought this for too much money. And it came with, well, all that. So as you see, it's been wrecked. You're probably asking, well, what is it? It's a 1987 Kawasaki Concours. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I've been told it has the same engine, or a detuned version of the GTR. It is a 1000cc. And now you're asking yourself, great, but why did you buy it? So the reason I bought it was actually for a family member who might want to learn how to ride. And we were trying to keep something as cheap as possible. And obviously today's market's a little crazy when you try to buy a motorcycle. So I paid $600 for that thing. Yeah, I know. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. It runs, though. It does run. They showed me that it ran. Just not very well. So what we have to do, we're going to jump right into this project. This is obviously not going to be a long project, but it is going to get painted, and we are going to try to make it run well. We got to fix the front brakes, and we got to do some custom work with the body to try to make it, well, look better than it does. So I'll show you a picture right now of what that bike looked originally, and yes, it was still ugly. So there's some work that we have to do to try to modify this thing to make it better. But with that said, we need to start. It's hot outside right now. I'm dripping sweat, but this thing needs to be cleaned, so we're gonna hit it with the power washer. All right, so the pressure washer is out. So is the bike. I can't stop laughing every time I look at this. I know you guys think I'm nuts. Like, I think I'm nuts too. I don't know why I bought this. Anyhow, I'm just gonna say, if I can get this thing looking halfway decent, I definitely need huge props for it, because this is probably like the biggest project that I can possibly say that I was like, no freaking way. Anyhow, we're gonna hit this thing with some water and some soap and some degreaser and some kind of love.
I can hear the demons call when they do what they do, and now I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. I just gotta get through, I just gotta get through. Cause I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. Sometimes I feel like all is lost, but I know it's not true. I wanna put up all my walls cause I'm not in the mood, but then I cut myself off from the rest of the room. I know that time can heal it all if you're patient, and soon it can all be worth it, all the searching. Pain is never really permanent, but damn it hurts, man. I could feel all of the turbulence and it's concerning. I've been searching for a purpose, I hope it's worth it. This society is really trying me, ain't no hide and seek, I hide to be.
All right, so we pressure washed it, we scrubbed it, we dug it, we did it all. And it, well, it looks the same. So whatever, nonetheless, that's just ugly, and ugly is ugly. There's a lot of different design options I'm gonna be changing on this thing. Anyhow, we'll go into that once we get to the body section, design section. But for right now, again, we have to get it running. And for me to do that, I have to clean the carbs. And to clean the carbs, I gotta clean the gas out of the old tank. And to do that, I gotta take the tank off. So we're gonna move to that. It might already be loose, I don't know, I ain't touched it. Hey, look at that, almost no effort. So I'm gonna pull that thing off. Not gonna do it on camera because one, you don't care, and two, I don't want to get gas everywhere when I'm holding the camera. So let me get that off, we'll take a look at it. All right, so tank is off. There's a really strange box on the bottom of it with the plug coming out of it. I don't know if that's for some kind of reserve or the gas light thing. I don't know, it seems kind of old school with the old school pet cot shut off. Kind of weird, but it's an old bike, what do you expect? Here are the carbs, and I see some real jackery going on in here, like this, and this, and that does not connect it. I don't know if that's for the carb or what, but or for the choke. I also noticed it looks like these aren't clamped on. So what happens if we just yank them off? Ooh, look at that. See? One thing in my favor. All right, so it looks like I have to disconnect both, I think, throttle cables. I think that's going to each bank. I would imagine 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So I'm gonna disconnect that. I'll pop all the caps off the bottom, or the bolts off the bottom of them. We'll take a look inside the carbs and see what they look like. Okay, so here is our carbs. Everything appears to, well, the slides appear to function so far. What we're gonna do, again, we're gonna drain these things. So we're gonna pull off basically each 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4 on each 4 of these carbs. Let those things drain into this right here, or on the desk, never mind. Well, let me clean it up. Okay, so I got all that gas cleaned up. I got all the bolts out there sitting right there, and I can tell you that when this thing ran real rough. Like it was struggling to rev up until they really hit high RPMs in it. And when that gas poured out, it didn't look old, even though they said it was old. So I'm trying to put 2 and 2 together. The gas also wasn't very strong. So almost like it could have been watered down. I wonder if there was water in the tank. I mean, I looked inside the tank, it wasn't rusty, but I wonder if water was in the carbs, and that's the reason they weren't running well. Anyhow, I haven't taken these off yet, so we're going to go ahead and try that off. Well, that's pretty ugly. Definitely needs cleaned. As you can see there's the carbs. I guarantee that these orifices need cleaned out, because if somebody cleaned them, they didn't do the greatest job. Nothing against the other person, but these definitely need cleaned. That one stuck on there. Yeah, so not terrible. I've definitely seen worse. I've seen what looked like pea soup in those things before. It's super gross. Gasket probably needs repaired. Our little sealant, same deal. It's a little dirty. You can kind of see where the old gas was on it and never really got cleaned off. So maybe it was old gas, or maybe it was just watered down gas, and that's why it wasn't real yellow. I don't really know. You can kind of see it right there. A lot of times when you have gas that is with water in it, it kind of separates itself, but it looks cloudy, and that looks cloudy to me. So anyhow, I'm not going to bore you with the basics. I'm going to get all these things cleaned. We're going to get ready to put them back together. Okay, so while the carbs are soaking right now, we got to go on a supply run to get some things to make sure that this is, well, I wouldn't call it tip-top shape, but better than it is. So I'm going to need oil before I got to figure out what the oil capacity is on this, and then I'm going to pull out a spark plug real quick. I was told they were changed, but a lot of people say a lot of things, and well, we know how that goes. So let me pull one out real quick. All right, so it looks like they might have been telling the truth. They don't look that bad. They look fairly clean. They look like a cheap plug, so if it's cheap, we'll replace it, and if it is not, we'll clean them up. Keep in mind, it can be still bad even if it looks good, so keep that in mind. If they are cheap, I will replace them, but I'm going to the store now. All right, guys, so the carbs are cleaned and put back together. At this point, what I need to do is I need to find either a service manual or a parts fitch and make sure that all the vacuum lines that go to this thing, like you see here and here, are correct. I know obviously that's not correct, and that's definitely not correct, and that's not correct, so I got to figure out where those go. But also I got to make sure our air fuel screws, or bleed screw, whatever they're called, our air fuel mixture screws are set correctly. And I'm going to tell you right now by looking at them, somebody broke that edge off, somebody kind of hollowed that out. I'm going to have a little attention there, but I'll figure out what the manual says that's supposed to be. However, before we get into all that, I want to do that. So spark plugs are only $3.50 a piece. I bought all 4 of them. Might as well. They try to sell me an extended warranty on it. I'm not sure why somebody puts an extended warranty on a spark plug for half the price of a spark plug. Whatever, I don't care. Let's go ahead and put these things in. Alright, just real quick, just checking out the plugs themselves, the last 3 that came out of the 4. They look okay, a little sooty, nothing real bad, so I think we're alright. We don't have any of the tips crushed down, so the piston isn't slapping against it. I think we're alright. Let's go ahead and put in the new one. Alright, just wanted to let you guys know that before you put those spark plugs in, always check your gap. Even though they come pre-gapped at a .028, you don't always know that they're going to be, so I go ahead and double check with our little cheap spark plug gap tool. Now we're ready to drop them in. Alright, so spark plugs are now in, everything is put back together. One thing I did notice that was kind of strange, these should be twin coils, and it looks like they have a positive on the inside on both of them. Usually they would be the same, so I could be wrong on that, but I can see that there's been some custom work done to this harness, so I'll have to go through that and make sure that that is correct as well. But let's go ahead and move forward. Okay, so it's oil changing time now. Obviously important thing to do. What we got to do is we got to take off obviously our drain plug that you'll see right there, and then this plug right here actually holds the oil filter. Kind of strange where it's put, but that's where it's at. I'm gonna go ahead and drop that, throw in 3/4 of 1040 and a new filter, and we'll be done. Alright, so I got the carbs cleaned, put back on, and I guess synced or whatever, I don't know. It wasn't fun, it was whatever. I don't know why they ever make carburetors anyways. Right now I'm going to go ahead and take some carburetor, throttle body cleaner, whatever, starting fluid. I'm going to spray it in the carbs, and we're going to see if this thing fires real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the throttle. See if it does anything. Alright, so it runs. That's good news. Throttle response was good for the little bit of carb spray that I cleaned in it. Or I sprayed in it. So I think what I'm going to do now, I need to go get some clean gas. We're going to test out fuel in the carbs. Alright, so here's our latest trick. So we don't want to mess with the gas tank yet because I don't know if it's clean inside and it's got some old gas in it that I have to get out of it. So we're going to use a water bottle as our temporary gas tank. What I've done is I've taken enough gas that should fill all 4 carbs in the bowls to the top level. And what I did was I went ahead and drilled a hole through the top of the water bottle, as you can see, slide it through the hose. We are going to go like so and turn this thing on, making sure that we get a good tight fit because we don't want it leaking for obvious reasons. Like so, and pour it upside down. We're going to let this sink down into the carbs again, and then we're going to fire it again. We're trying to run it for a minute to see how well it runs. Okay, so now that we're ready, let's go ahead and turn key on. Let's put the choke on, and let's fire it over. Alright, so it ran as long as the choke was on, which tells me that I need to bring up my idle, but it was running pretty darn smooth. Let me adjust the idle, I'll be right back. Alright, and there you have it, a smooth running idling bike. Couple more things to do. I got to get some air filters on this thing. I got to unlock the front brakes because it feels like they're stuck on and they're not working well. And then I got to check all the rest of the fluids after it's warmed up, and then we'll move forward to body, style, and paint. Alright guys, so it's time to move into the paint and body side, and obviously design side, and what we're going to do with it. Very first off, before we even touch the body panels, talk about color, talk about what kind of fairings we're going to put it on or leave on it. We need to do a little bit of painting on the base of it, so the motor needs painted. And we are going to paint that with a satin Rust-Oleum, and the frame needs a nice gloss Rust-Oleum. So again, this is not getting top shelf treatment. We're going to make it look good, but we're not going crazy with the cost because we got to keep it as cheap as possible, considering I paid way too much for the bike and what it's worth. So let's move forward. I'm going to go ahead and spray all that. I'll show you what it looks like just after. Alright, so the frame and the engine is now painted. Now it's time to start putting things back on, like the airbox, things of that nature. I read online that the cone or pod filters are really bad for these bikes. They don't run really well without the original filter, so I don't really want to fight with it. I'll just put the original back on so we know that it runs and rides safely and reliably. So let's go ahead and move forward. Now, as you may be able to see, the airbox in, I haven't put the 2 bolts, one on each side in yet, but you can kind of see the gap for the old wore-out boots. That's really the main concern, because apparently with these carbs, if they don't have enough reduction in air intake, it won't create enough vacuum for them to pull enough fuel, and that's why it has to run on choke all the time. So cone filters apparently aren't bad, or pod filters, whatever you want to call them, so I don't know what I'm going to do as far as this gap. I'm going to try to close it up the best I can, but it definitely needs to be closed completely so it can get its good bottom end torque that it needs. Okay guys, so I just went ahead and took this thing for a quick ride. It actually rode kind of good. I was kind of scared because I wasn't really sure the way it stands. I'm not used to the way the handlebars are and everything, but it did run good. It didn't stop very good, so I went ahead and bled the front brakes. Now I'm doing the old school race trick where you leave this tied for 24 hours to get rid of any of the small air bubbles that are inside there that didn't get out when you purge it through the bleeder valves. So that's good to go there. We do have a couple other small things to do. We are going to talk about paint here in a minute, but what we're going to do with the body, I've got a custom headlight that's going on the front. I have a custom gauge cluster that's going to be going in this thing that's more modern digital version. I have a couple different things that are going on the bike. We'll get to that. And yes, I did ride it like this with just the seat. It was strange looking. I just filled the carbs with gas and it works, so whatever. What I'm going to do right now, though, I need to cut off that right there. Yeah, that right there, that has to go because, well, that looks really stupid. So I do have custom turning signals that are going in the rear that'll be LED as well. We're going to keep the tail because we have no choice, but that thing there, it's got to go, so I'm going to cut that off right now. Alright guys, so in order to cut this thing correctly, I went ahead and installed the upper fairing here, or the rear fairing I should call it. And what we're going to do is going to take a Sharpie and we're going to go and mark along the edge to make sure we get this thing cut perfectly straight like we need it. And then you'll notice right here that we have a big gap sunk in from where the old luggage containers were, luggage boxes, whatever they're called. So I went ahead and 3D printed a kind of a cool insert to make it look a little bit better. I thought it was pretty neat. It's going to get painted obviously to match the bike, but it's a perfect fit. I thought it looked pretty neat, so we're going to throw that on there. It'd be a great, basically great addition for $1.68 a piece, so you can't really go wrong there. Let me go ahead though and mark this thing, cut this thing out, and we'll see what it looks like. Alright, so the cut turned out really nice. You can't hardly see it at all whatsoever when you're looking at it from the side, so that's a good thing. Now the real question is, as far as turning signals, do I use the ones I bought to put inside these holes right here, or do I integrate them with an RV harness to get them to use the brake lights as the turn signals? I got a debate on that one for a second, but I'll be back. We'll come up with a decision. Okay, so moving on to the front fender. The front fender was already cut because it was cracked on both ends, and it was really strange. It looked like a banana, but not yellow. So we went ahead and trimmed up a little bit more. I think it looks better than it did. Definitely not the most sporty looking fender, but it's definitely way better than it was. Okay, so moving forward, I want to go ahead and give this thing a lower belly pan of some sort. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize the actual lower here, and then I'll mix it with a little bit of these mid fairings, maybe cut them off to see if I can come up with something to give it not just a naked look, but a little bit of a sporty design, kind of like a, I don't know, like a Ducati Street Fighter type thing. I will do some cutting real quick, and I guess we'll find out what I come out with. Alright, so you guys can kind of see what we've done here and where we've cut it. I went ahead and cut the mid fairings, as you see at the blue tape line there. We just keep the lower portion here. I do have to do some body work on these things. You can see there's a crack here, and there was a piece missing here that I have to graft onto it. So there's a little bit of work to do. But this, again, is not going to be any kind of body work video. We're going to knock this out in one video. So I'm going to show you what this is like when it's all said and done. Alright, so just a quick update. We went ahead and sanded out all our panels while we're doing the one and the tank, so all the bodywork has been sanded down. I'm going to put on a little bit of filler right now, then we're going to sand it again. We're going to prime and get ready for paint. I just want to give you a quick update. Alright, ready for paint. Let's do it. Alright, parts are painted. We are in our mini paint booth. As you can see, I made it very small and tight. Somehow or another, I managed to, for what I can see, not get any trash in the paint. So, one of the biggest things here, if you guys are spraying green, is obviously it's green. Green's dust seems to get everywhere, so if you don't tape off everything, I mean, it's on everything, so you really got to make sure you tape off really, really good, as I did. What I ended up going with was the Kawi green base, and then a really light pearl on top of it, which is kind of like the, I don't know if it's Ithaca Verde or what Lamborghini calls it, but it's basically the same idea. There is a little bit lighter, but overall it should look pretty good. I haven't brought it out in the sun yet, but it was basically 3 coats base and 2 coats, sorry, 3 coats base, 1 coat mid coat, and 1 coat clear. So, good enough for this bike. I think it'll look pretty good. It'll definitely look better than it did. So I'm gonna let this dry out, move stuff around, and then we are gonna start putting this bike together. Alright, so while we're waiting for the paint to dry, I got a few things to do. And I'm gonna go ahead and make this taillight from red to black. And guess what? I'm not gonna even take it off or tape it off. Before and after. Now let's move on. Quick glamour shot of the pearl if you can see it. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but it's kind of a slight purplish blue. Alright, so before we put the body on, we have a couple things we have to do. We have to do a little bit of wiring. We have a custom headlight, as you see right here, with some headlight, or I'm sorry, turning signals built into it. I also have a custom gauge pod that I have to custom wire into that mess right there. We have to wire in some rear turn signals and a few other things to make sure they're all ready to go. In addition to, I ended up ordering some pod cone filters for the carbs because I could not get those boots at a halfway decent rate. They were like $30 a piece used, which is ridiculous. So if I have any problems with idling, I'll just find a way to restrict the cone pod filters if I have to. Nonetheless, it's got to get on right now. I got to figure out some wiring and we'll get it thrown together. Alright, so electrical has been done in the front. Again, we did the headlight. We did all the gauge cluster, which doesn't have to be sitting on here right now. I'm getting ready to CNC cut a bracket for the gauge plate to be mounted. I went ahead and put on the pod filters. Again, it did run too lean, so I went ahead and made this, or 3D printed this kind of restrictor plate to go all the way around it. It's kind of cool. Kind of keeps it from getting as wet as well. It seems to be holding up. It does idle a little high. Kind of the idle kind of hangs a little bit. I think that maybe because it's too rich. I don't really know for sure. But it needs to be ridden for a little bit to test that theory out anyhow. So what I got to do now is I got to throw in the back rear turn signals and a few little bits and pieces, and then we'll start putting the body back on. Alright, so a few things. I was going to get ready to start putting the bodywork on, and what I noticed was, well, like 4 different things. First of all, headlight, high beam and low, is not working. If I look back here, it looks like all the wiring, and again, this wiring is hardly legible, and I don't even know if it goes to the right bike. If it does, it goes to some sort of headlight relay up here, threw that into a main relay, which I haven't found. I did relocate the turn signal relay back here because it was up in this big cluster up here, so I was trying to clear out and make room. So I got to find those 2 relays, figure out what's going on with the headlights. Moving down here, you can see the tire's flat. That is because the valve stem, which is an oddball metal one, is leaking. I have to replace that. Brakes, this one is semi-locked up. I noticed it yesterday when I rode the bike. I touched both rotors because it's almost impossible to push this thing around. That one's cold, this one's hot. So this tells me, even without hardly using the brakes, that this thing's kind of dragging. So I gotta fix that. Last but not least, you see that? There was an oil leak coming out of right there somewhere. So I gotta find that. So obviously before I put on the bodywork, I gotta figure that stuff out real quick. You guys probably don't need to see that. I just try to be as transparent as possible, let you guys know exactly what's going on with the bike. So anyways, I'm gonna get those things situated and then we'll get on the body.
Putting out the gauge cluster mount.
Okay, so here's the update. We went ahead and threw on the speedometer, calibrated everything, went ahead and put on the speedometer cable and magnets that we need to get the speed. We put on our headlight, wired in with our turning signals. We got rid of the oil leak in the back. We got a new LED blinker setup coming. That'll be here any moment, along with a new pair of grips to go on this thing. Got the LEDs installed in the back right here, as you'll see. And we painted the wheels black. Shut up, yes, I use spray paint, but it looks good, so tell me it doesn't. Looks way better. Anyhow, we're gonna move forward. It's time to put on the stupid body. Red's gotta go. Red is gone. I don't know for sure, but I might want to get rid of that. There we go. Alright guys, so the body's officially back on and all done. We have one more step to make, and that is decals. Alright, and there you have it. There is our final product. Now, keep in mind, this isn't meant to be a replacement or to look like a brand new super bike. This is an older bike that we made look better. And I gotta say, I think it looks better than it did. Now again, I don't think it's an eyesore, but it's not the best looking bike I've ever seen. It just definitely looks better than it did. If we compare this right now to what we had before, definitely better. And heck, let's even go ahead and compare it to what it looked like when it was new. Most definitely better looking now. I think it rides fantastic. It's a nice older bike. It feels like an older bike, but it's got a different feel, but it's got a nice feel to it. Definitely a cool cruiser. As far as price and cost, total all-in on this bike was roughly $965. I don't think that is too bad for an all-in on a bike of this age and of this size that runs as well as it does. That said, I hope you guys like this type of video. Like I said, I was just trying to find something to build, give us some kind of content as we're getting through the hottest season that we have here in the local Midwest. So if you guys like the video, throw that thumbs up. And if you haven't already, definitely click that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one.
Sometimes I feel like all is lost, but I know it's not true. I wanna put up all my walls cause I'm not in the mood, but then I cut myself off from the rest of the room. I know that time can heal it all if you're patient, and soon it can all be worth it, all the searching. Pain is never really permanent, but damn it hurts, man. I could feel all of the turbulence and it's concerning. I've been searching for a purpose, I hope it's worth it. This society is really trying me. Ain't no hide and seek, I hide to be far from anxiety. I need my space, I need my privacy. I need some silence, please, you're all too loud. You don't speak quietly, opinions violently thrown across every surface. It makes me nervous, is the world honestly burning? That's all I'm learning. Hope that we can make a turn and start reversing all our minds and put the work in. We got some work, man.